let's do it in reverse order. Why don't you go ahead and give me before we chat with John Tillman, why don't you give me your thumbnail on Maryland lacrosse?
There's some questions there, but also that's a team that really excited people in May. It's one of those situations where you go, well, they probably didn't have the regular season they wanted to have, but they're going to be remembered a lot better for what they were because they won 3 games in May and made it to Memorial Day. So, the two big questions for them, beyond simply having some offensive pieces to replace. You lose the USILA Player of the Year in Ajax Zapatello. You lose Luke Weirman, who was sort of your magic bullet for the last 3 years or so. On face-offs, and what do you do? Those are kind of the big questions there for them. But at the same time, there's nobody that's more consistent than Maryland. So you're just churning out 10-win seasons year after year after year. The last time, not counting the 2020, the COVID year, the last time that Maryland didn't win 10 games in a season was 2002.
Jesus.
So that is an absolute mark of consistency over multiple coaches, by the way. So just super reliable year in and year out, and there's, I think there should be a level of, confidence that Maryland will figure things out, even if they are dealing, for example, with a challenging schedule.
Right.
That they always do, and all that. You would fully expect them to be very much in the Big Ten mix, very much in the hunt to be hosting a tournament game, very much a danger to make a multi-round run once the NCAA tournament begins.
Let's find out a little bit more about that Maryland team, as he is, of course, the head coach of the Terrapins, coming off a year in which they did make that magical run to Memorial Day before falling short in the championship game. He is Coach John Tillman, and he is with us now here on the College Lacrosse Preview Show. Coach, it's Glenn and Patrick. It's always great to chat with you. Thank you so much for taking the time for us this morning.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with you guys. Appreciate it.
Coach, we talk about that in May, and I know it's a different group, right? But where did it come from? What did that group find? And for the players that are back from that run, how do they build off of that? How do they use that to move forward into this season?
Yeah, a credit to the guys and the staff. Super inconsistent last year. I think when the team played well, we could compete with everybody. And then when we weren't good, it was pretty bad. And that's just being honest and being real. So, trying to get guys to be more consistent certainly was a lot that went into towards the end of the year. You lose a game and then you got to kind of look at yourself, I think individually and collectively. You know where you are and you know that it's almost over. But we did have a lot of discussions with the guys and we were very open-minded. We trust our guys. Our guys are very invested here. And we looked at everything, to be honest, guys. We looked at how we warmed up before the game. We looked at how we practiced. We made strategic, big picture changes. We made personnel changes, certainly on the offensive end, because that was where I think we had the most opportunity to change. Some guys playing attack, some people playing in midfield. And then, obviously Luke gets hot there. And that certainly helps. We don't do what we do without Luke for sure. You just look at that Duke game. I felt like they were really controlling that game in the first quarter, first half, and we were able to kind of hang in there. I think Logan made some important saves, and Luke scores 2 goals, but also kept getting us possessions and let us hang around, and then again made some in-games adjustments, and then finally kind of got things clicking at the end. So a lot of variables in there. Again, lucky to have kids that kept believing and stuck together, and coaches that just kept coaching. But a good lesson for all of us, right? Always fight till the end. Never, stop looking at potential changes that maybe will be able to help you. Be open-minded. And then guys, hey, just if we need you to do something different, jump on board. Be willing to maybe change up so that the larger sum of everything gets better.
On the, you mentioned Luke and his play, and I know I mentioned it a little bit before you got on the air here. It's been such a weapon for you guys to have him the last few seasons, and now kind of dealing with life without him. How is that group kind of looking? And I'm assuming You're simply at this point just trying to get guys acclimated and get them some experience as much as anything else. But just what are your hopes for your face-off unit this year?
Yeah, we have four guys down there, and they're all very athletic. We have a lot of confidence in those guys, just the way they're wired. Most of those four guys, they were not just face-off guys in high school, so kind of cut very much out of the Luke Weirman kind of the cloth. When he came out of high school, he was a guy for Westchester Henderson that did a little of everything. So the guys that we do have, they actually, I think Mitch Lloyd was a high school All-American who played offense. You look at Jonah Carrier, he was the Offensive Player of the Year in Section 5. Sean Creeder, who's a face-off guy, is a sophomore for us. I think he had 50 goals his senior year. He played man up and faced off. And Shea Keithler was the Ohio Player of the Year, and two-sport athlete, super strong, tough. And what you take a little bit of stock in is, yeah, maybe they didn't do it on game day, but for anybody that's been here, they had to go against Luke every day. They were able to kind of watch what he did and like what was his mindset, what were his practice habits, what were his pregame routines. So I do think there's some value to that, but obviously, you got to get out there and do that. Part of the year has been to try to get guys ready. In the fall, we scrimmaged our alums. We went to Philly. We scrimmaged St. Joe's and Lehigh. So we got, three opportunities there. We had Cornell at the end of the fall. So that was a fourth. And now we've gone against Duke and Georgetown. So, those guys have gone against six different groups just to get them and not just the face-off guys, but everybody acclimated. And I'm sure I'm like anybody else that's been on here. We're still trying to figure it out, guys in roles and sets and combinations, trying to manage pregame injury or preseason injuries, which, the weather has been the weather. So I think that's probably been a topic of conversation with my peers more than ever. Just, how do you treat preseason? Because, we're 4 days from a game now and the best ability is availability. How are you treating those 2 weeks? You got a lot to do, but you also want your best guys out there. So it is a tricky balance to find that sweet spot of preparation and getting them in shape, but yet not overdoing things and losing guys because you're pushing too hard.
A year ago, so much was made about the fact that you were able to make this run without having like a Logan Wisnauskas, a Bernhardt, maybe your traditional like Tewarton finalist type of goal scorer. You do bring back key offensive pieces, right? Like Braden Erksa and Eric Spanos. Do you feel like it's likely going to be a similar story where it's going to be more of a balanced and maybe committee approach, or could you see some of these guys that have a little bit of experience maybe stepping up and becoming more of those alpha types?
I think both, to be honest. You're certainly going to lean on, some guys that have been here. And, you kind of look at, you mentioned Braden, who was the Big Ten Rookie of the Year. I thought Spanos played great down the stretch, and those are pretty important guys for us. Daniel Kelly has had a great career with us, does a lot for us. He scored some big goals, down the stretch for us as well. So you have a nucleus there, and then we have a lot of new parts, but again, it's nice to have some veteran pieces. I think those guys, I think they're ready if need be to step up, but I don't think they need to be the guy all the time. And I think that's helpful for us. Even in 22, and 21, like that was very much ball movement predicated. The ball really didn't die. Certainly, you had some guys like a Jared that, could win just about any matchup, which is a rarity. But even Wisnauskas was not a just get the ball and go to. He was definitely making his, mark with doing it a lot of different ways, keeping the ball spinning, finding good spots. But the ball didn't die. And I think that's the way we've tried to play, especially since 2017. We were definitely a little more methodical with that group. but that suited Matt and Colin and the group that we had. But since then, we've definitely been more movement centric, ball movement centric, just trying to kind of play a little bit more open-minded style and kind of like a positionless lacrosse. And then trying to tailor it each year to what these guys do well. It's great to have Michael Phipps here and have a whole fall with him. A lot of the reason why he's here, one, he's a Terp, but two, just knowing what he's preached at Georgetown and Navy and the places he's been, I think he's definitely, when you look at the way we want to play, he's kind of had that same mindset of, making sure the ball moves and not just relying on one guy. I feel like that's a lot easier to defend.
You guys have had the number one jersey become something of a program symbol here over the last several years. And Logan McNaney, the goalie who was obviously part of your last national title team, gets to wear it this year. Just what kind of went into that decision, and just how's Logan at this point as he heads into his 5th season?
Yeah, a lot more went into that than I think people realize. We really just needed to let that play out. We weren't sure what was going to happen. And the reason being is, Logan finished up last year with an injury. He had surgery on his hand not long after the season. So he kind of got through last year, with an injury, got that taken care of. But then his knee didn't feel right, the one he had surgery on a couple years ago. So he got that scoped. So that meant he was not going to play a lot this fall. He came back really our last week, the week of Cornell. So the bulk of our work really went to Brian Ruppel, and Brian has been tremendous. To be honest, coming into the spring, like we felt like we did have two guys that were beyond capable. Brian played really well against Cornell. He played well in the other scrimmages. And in fairness to Brian, and then stay consistent with our culture, we could not just go, okay, well, Logan's back, he's going to start. To me, we had to let this thing play out. So Logan did play, a little bit against Cornell, and then he was in practice for like the last month. And then we've been back about 4 weeks now. So it's been really tight. Really tight. And to be honest, if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd say we don't have an answer yet. And that's how well Brian's played. So, we'll see. We're going to go with Logan to start. But Brian is right there, and that's a compliment to him. And it was hard because, if Brian is the starter, then, we probably don't make that decision just because of, the history of the number and such. And that's not taking anything away from anybody, but we felt like if Logan did win the job and played well, that was something we would explore. And Logan did play very well in our scrimmages. He was very good against Georgetown, and that kind of led us to our decision. We certainly had other options. We mentioned some of the other guys on offense, and there are some other guys that would be great candidates. I think the guys that have worn that jersey, they haven't seeked it out. They, kind of appreciated the history of the number, but weren't defined by it. They weren't jockeying for it. I think even we had to kind of convince Logan Wisnauskas and Connor Kelly and Jared Bernhardt to wear it. They were, the response was, well, I'm not a number guy. I just like playing lacrosse, and kind of getting them to understand, what that number means and the type of people they were. I thought they were great fits. And, as a staff, we always make these decisions. So I value our staff's opinion a lot, and everybody kind of felt like it was the right decision with Logan.
Maryland lacrosse coach John Tillman with us on our college lacrosse preview show. Coach, if I could run by a couple of newcomers to this program, and one that's really fascinating to me is Jack Dowd, who scored 150 goals in his career at Salisbury, acknowledging that's the D3 level. He's a goal scorer. We know that. Like, he's capable, but how difficult and is that transition, and is a reasonable expectation for someone who was one of the best players in the country at a lower level?
Yeah, I don't think people really realize the under, like, when guys transition into your program, it's not just plug and play. There's definitely a lot that goes into it. You're plopping a guy down into a new environment, a new locker room. We certainly spend a lot of time with these guys, and I don't know if vetting is the right word, but we definitely, do our due diligence when, we bring guys in here, and we want them to do the same with us and kind of understand, what we do and why, and make sure it's a good fit. Jack, when we met him, we had heard so many good things from so many different people. And he's been fantastic since he's gotten here. High character guy, very humble guy, very coachable, a high IQ guy. When you think 150 goals, you think he just shoots and shoots and shoots. Great vision, excellent passer, good feel for the game, lets the game come to him. He's very two-handed. So he's been easy. Certainly, trying to figure out who should be playing with who and what they do well and where we would want them to be. That's been the fun challenge of it, because I do think as a coach, each year's different. And trying to figure out, how do we set these kids up for success? How do we bring out the best in them? To me, that's a real fun part of it. We try not to just go, all right, this is what we do. You guys have to fit into our system. I think we're pretty open-minded, that we just want to adapt and figure out, all right, what do these guys feel most comfortable doing? How can we get them to play fast and free, and bring out the best in them? And Jack's been great. He really has. Been nicked up a little bit here and there, but he's looking good. He's been great. So I'm really excited for him this year.
John, I wanted to ask you about Pete Medhurst, who died last week, and you obviously had the chance to work with Pete a bit while you were at Navy, and also with some of his BTN broadcasts. And what are kind of some of your memories of him, and just what a lacrosse guy he ultimately was over the years, and just how important he was for the sport.
Yeah, sad news. Having and gotten to know him, and just through obviously the lacrosse aspect, but you're driving around on a Saturday, and you throw a Navy football game on, and you hear that voice, and just there's a sense of comfort there and familiarity. Just a tragic loss, just in terms of the type of human being he was. A great guy, humble, all about the kids. Really, when he did a game, it was super positive. There wasn't any, sometimes, you can hear people be negative or critical and things like that. Just was a real pro, and loved the game. And a guy we're going to miss. I know he's done some other games, and, was just knew his stuff when he got on the pre-call with him and kind of talked to him about the game. He had done his homework. He knew the right questions, who was playing with who. And, when he did the game, just, called it the way you'd want, right down the middle. A guy we're going to miss on so many levels, again, as a friend, as a person, but part of the lacrosse community.
There's no question about that. A very, very special human being to boot. Season begins for Maryland. They'll be at home this Saturday against Richmond at noon. Then up here in Baltimore next Saturday, February 8th at Loyola to take on the Greyhounds. Coach John Tillman, appreciate you. Know you got a busy day down there with Media Day. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning. We really appreciate you doing this as always.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
John
Have
Tillman,
a good day.
You as well. John Tillman, head coach at Maryland, with us here on our college lacrosse preview show. Just because it's come up a couple times, and of course Patrick and I were chatting right as we got the news. And if you haven't seen, there will be public service for Pete Medhurst this Saturday down in Anne Arundel County, which of course was home for Pete Medhurst. And if you'd like to, you can go to I think you could just search it and you get the information there. I know they had a really special night for him at Southern High School on Friday night, his alma mater. But this Saturday, starting the visitation at 10 a.m. at Chesapeake Christian Fellowship. And then immediately following the visitation will be the service for Pete Medhurst. So I don't want to go too far because I'll end up getting emotional again all over. But if you want to help celebrate the life, and I think his family could still use the lift, and that GoFundMe is still up, and certainly anything that you could do for his family, I think would go a really, really long way.